Welcome to tonight's bedtime story. As you settle in, take a deep breath and let the stresses of the day melt away. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet forest, bathed in moonlight, where ancient trees whisper secrets of a long-lost magic. Tonight, we journey into a mystical grove, where a dragon and an elf, Kaelin and Lyra, are drawn together by a powerful ancient force. Their bond, forged by peace and hidden deep within this enchanted place, is about to change their lives forever. Let the calmness of this tale wrap around you as we enter a world of mystery and magic, where the magic of the grove awaits. Close your eyes, relax, and let the story take you into the heart of the night. In the stillness of the night, the elven forest lay cloaked in mist, bathed in faint silver light as the moon hung low, casting shadows that danced over ancient trees. An air of mystery settled over the land, and through the silent woods, an intoxicating scent began to weave itself, drifting like a spell through the trees and stirring memories long forgotten. The scent was faint at first, a whisper on the breeze, but it grew stronger with each passing hour, winding its way through towering oaks, winding streams and moss-laden stones. High in the mountains, in a cavern filled with gleaming crystals and hidden treasures, Kaelin, an ancient dragon of silver scales, stirred. He had spent centuries in these mountains, seldom straying from the peaks that were his domain. Yet tonight, something tugged at the edges of his consciousness. It was a fragrance, unlike anything he had ever known. And though he had roamed forests and valleys for eons, the scent that lingered now in the air was new, vibrant, and alive with a magic he could not name. Kaelin lifted his head, his keen senses sharpening as he caught the scent again. It was delicate, with hints of lavender and starlight, carrying with it the secrets of old magic. A pull, soft but insistent, began to work its way into his thoughts, drawing him away from his cavern, urging him down from the mountains. Though he was a dragon of ancient wisdom and rarely swayed by impulses, he found himself following this call, his wings unfurling as he rose into the night sky, a silent shadow against the stars. Meanwhile, in the heart of the elven forest, a young elf named Lyra awoke, feeling the pulse of magic ripple through her bones. She was no stranger to the mysteries of the forest, for she had spent her life exploring its hidden paths, uncovering secrets whispered only to those who dared to listen. Yet tonight, she sensed something deeper, an echo of power that was both foreign and familiar. Lyra's feet led her through the silent woods, where every leaf and branch seemed to glisten with anticipation. The forest felt alive in a way she had never felt before, as if each tree and stone pulsed with a quiet reverence for what lay ahead. She moved silently, her footsteps soft as the mist curled around her. guiding her toward the source of that enchanting scent. The further she went, the stronger it grew, filling her with a sense of awe she could not name. It was as though she were being led by unseen hands to a place she had only dreamed of. Her mind raced with possibilities, stories she'd heard from the elders about a hidden grove, a sanctuary lost to time and memory, where the flowers bloomed once in a century, casting spells of peace and harmony over the land. At the edge of the grove, Kalen alighted, his massive form cloaked in shadows, his breath stirring the mist around him. The grove lay before him, bathed in a glow so faint it seemed born of starlight. There, under the canopy of ancient trees, a sea of flowers swayed, each petal shimmering with silvery light as though dipped in moonlight itself. He had seen many wonders, yet the sight of this grove stilled his heart. It was as if he stood on the edge of a dream, a place where reality and magic blurred into one. As Kalen stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the ethereal blooms, he caught a flicker of movement. From the shadows, Lyra emerged, her face touched with the same awe that mirrored his own. She had seen the dragon in stories and glimpses, but never before had she stood so close, and yet she felt no fear. Something in the air told her that they were both drawn by the same spell, led by the same mystery. For a long moment, they simply stared, the grove's magic binding them in a silence that held as much wonder as it did caution. In that instant, they were not dragon and elf, but two souls standing at the threshold of something ancient and powerful, a mystery older than either could fathom. The scent of the flowers wrapped around them, enfolding them in its spell. The grove seemed to recognize them, its blooms bowing slightly, as if welcoming their arrival. And in the hush of that moment, Kalen and Lyra knew that they had been chosen. The grove held them in its thrall, the delicate, shimmering flowers nodding in a silent breeze, as if whispering secrets only the trees could understand. Kalen and Lyra stood at opposite ends of the clearing, eyes locked, yet both uncertain of what to say or do. Their presence here felt forbidden, as if they were intruders in a sanctuary, reserved only for the ancient forces that governed magic itself. For a dragon to stand so close to an elf was rare enough, and for an elf to linger in the company of a dragon even rarer still. Yet here, under the spell of the grove, something deeper than custom or fear wove itself between them. Lyra's heart raced, each beat resonating in her chest as she took in the sight of the great dragon. His scales gleamed with a silver sheen, the edges catching the faint light of the flowers and casting glimmers across the ground like fractured stars. "Are you real?" she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the soft rustle of petals. Kalen's golden eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in curiosity. Dragons did not often speak with elves, let alone entertain such questions. But this night was different. and he felt compelled to answer. "As real as the earth beneath you," he replied, his voice low and resonant, like the rumble of distant thunder. "Though I could ask the same of you, little one. Are you a creature of this world, or merely a dream brought forth by the grove?" A faint smile touched Lyra's lips, the dragon's words igniting a spark of courage within her. "I am as real as you are, though my kind may be less enduring," she replied, stepping forward cautiously. "I felt drawn here. The scent led me, as if it had a will of its own." Kalen nodded, lowering his head slightly to better meet her gaze. "The same for me. I could not resist its call. It has been many centuries since I left my mountains, yet here I stand, enchanted by this grove." The two fell silent again, each lost in their own thoughts. Lyra's mind raced with the stories she had heard as a child, stories of dragons and elves who once roamed together, bound by a respect for the world they shared. But those were tales from an age long past, and all she had known in her life was separation, each race guarding their own secrets, their own lands. To stand here with a dragon felt like stepping back into a myth, a glimpse into a time she thought only existed in old songs and fading memories. She looked down, realizing her hand had drifted toward the flowers, her fingers brushing a silver-petaled bloom. The moment her skin touched it, a warmth surged through her, and a vision bloomed in her mind. An image of elves and dragons, side by side, their laughter mingling under sun-dappled skies as they shared knowledge and wisdom, treating one another not as rivals but as companions. Kalen felt the magic too, a tremor that rippled through the ground beneath him. In that instant, he saw visions as well, scenes of dragons and elves protecting the grove together, the flowers blooming in brilliant colors as both races thrived under a pact of harmony. He pulled his gaze away from the flowers and looked at Lyra, a dawning understanding reflected in his eyes. "This grove," he began, his voice a whisper. "It holds more than beauty. There is power here, a magic I have never encountered. It is ancient, woven deep within the roots of these trees and flowers." Lyra nodded, her hand still lingering over the bloom. The elder spoke of a sanctuary, a place where the essence of peace dwells, born of both dragon and elf. They say it was created to bind our kinds together, to remind us that we are of the same world. I thought it was just a legend. "It may be more than legend," Kalen replied, his tone thoughtful. "It may be a gift, but one that is fragile, easily broken." As they exchanged these revelations, a new sense of purpose settled over them. They were not mere wanderers in this grove. They had been called to this place for a reason, led by a magic that knew more than either of them could fathom. In that moment, the grove seemed to pulse, as if it understood their thoughts, as if it recognized them as protectors, as guardians of its secret. They both understood, without needing to say it aloud, that their encounter here was forbidden by the old ways. Elves and dragons did not mingle, did not share bonds beyond wary truce. But the grove had brought them together, and in doing so, it had rekindled an ancient bond, a shared purpose that felt as natural as the forest itself. Under the moon's watchful gaze, Kaelin and Lyra stood side by side, not as dragon and elf, but as beings united by the call of the grove, bound by a promise whispered on petals and roots. A promise that this place, this harmony, could survive if they chose to protect it. As the night deepened, they knew their journey together had only just begun. The grove felt alive, in a way neither Kaelin nor Lyra could fully comprehend. The flowers seemed to murmur among themselves, their silvery petals trembling as if whispering ancient secrets into the night air. The earth beneath them pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat, connecting them to a force that lay hidden beneath layers of soil, roots, and time. The two unlikely companions stood in silent reverence, sensing that they were on the verge of discovering something older, duller than both their races. Lyra knelt near a cluster of flowers, entranced by the intricate patterns etched into each petal. In their delicate veins, she saw shapes that reminded her of stars, constellations twisted into blooms. Reaching out, she touched a blossom, feeling warmth spread from the tips of her fingers, as though the flower itself was responding to her presence. Her vision blurred, and in the haze, she saw a flicker of movement, a shimmering image that seemed to form and dissolve within the flower's silvery glow. The grove around her faded as the vision deepened. She was no longer standing on forest ground, but gazing into a memory, as ancient as the roots below. She saw elves and dragons moving side by side, their laughter weaving into the rustling of trees, their voices carrying across the wind. They worked together, tending to the grove as if it were a sacred relic, a heart from which their unity and peace were drawn. Lyra watched, entranced, as they shared knowledge, laughter, and most astonishingly, trust. Then she heard Kaelin's voice, a low murmur that cut through her vision. "You see it too?" he asked, his voice tinged with the same awe that coursed through her. Lyra nodded, her eyes wide. "Yes, it's as if this place holds memories, secrets of a time when our kinds were connected, and somehow were able to witness it." Kaelin lowered his massive head until his snout hovered just above the flowers. A dragon's breath of fire was said to kindle even the coldest heart. But here, he felt something kindling within him, something beyond fire, something far gentler. "There is magic in these flowers, a magic that binds, that remembers," he said. "This grove, it was created to remind us of who we once were." As he spoke, a subtle shift occurred within the grove. The flower's glow intensified, casting a soft, ethereal light over the trees. In the shadows, hidden pathways appeared, winding deeper into the grove, luring them further into its mysteries. Following the paths, Lyra and Kaelin stepped carefully, their footsteps silent as the earth softened beneath them. At the heart of the grove, they found a pool of water, so clear it appeared to hold the sky itself. The stars above seemed mirrored in its depths, as if the pool bridged two realms, one earthly, the other boundless. Lyra knelt beside it, mesmerized by its stillness, while Kaelin watched, feeling a pull he had never felt before. The pool seemed to welcome them, inviting them to peer into its secrets. Together they gazed into the water, and as they did, images unfolded before them. They saw ancient pacts, promises sealed under moonlight, between elves and dragons who had once vowed to protect this grove, to guard the harmony it represented. But then they saw the shadow of betrayal, moments when greed and pride had driven their races apart, shattering the trust that bound them. The pool showed them what could be once again, a vision of unity, a future where dragon and elf could stand as allies, where they could work together to protect the sacredness of this place. It was a fragile vision, but one that pulsed with a hope that stirred their hearts. Lyra looked up at Kaelin, her eyes filled with a resolve she had not known she possessed. "This grove holds the power to restore what was lost," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "We were brought here to protect it, to make sure that future is possible." Kaelin, too, felt the weight of purpose settle over him. The pride of dragons was legendary, as was their reluctance to ally with other creatures. But in this moment, he understood the significance of the grove's magic and the role he and Lyra were meant to play. He nodded solemnly, his golden eyes locking onto hers. "We must protect it, then," he rumbled. "But such power is vulnerable. If word of this grove were to spread beyond the forest, others would seek it, drawn not by its beauty, but by the power it holds." Lyra's gaze hardened, and she reached for her bow, a quiet symbol of her own commitment. "Then we shall keep its secrets hidden, as guardians, not just of the grove, but of the harmony it offers. Let no one defile this place or use it for gain." The grove seemed to respond, its flowers bending slightly toward them as though acknowledging their vow. In that sacred silence, Lyra and Kaelin knew their lives would forever be intertwined with this place, bound by the oath they had taken, witnessed by the flowers, the stars, and the unseen forces that had called them here. Together, they rose, feeling the weight of the grove's secret settle upon them. In the days to come, this sanctuary would face threats, and they would be tested. But for now, under the watchful eyes of the ancient flowers and the silent pool, they felt the first stirrings of a bond that neither distance nor danger could break. As dawn began to seep through the dark forest canopy, Lyra and Kaelin felt a subtle shift in the air, as if the grove sensed an encroaching threat. The harmony they had glimpsed, the peace promised within the grove's magical pool, now felt as fragile as morning dew, vulnerable to the first touch of sunlight. Their vigil over the grove would not go unchallenged, for there were others who sensed the power hidden within these woods. Lyra's keen ears picked up faint footsteps from beyond the grove's boundaries, and her heart clenched. A group of elves, renegades from her own kin, had caught the grove's scent and followed its trail. These elves were known to seek power at any cost, often aligning themselves with darker forces. The grove's magic, the very heart of peace, could easily be twisted by such hands into a weapon, a means to assert dominance. "We're not alone," Lyra whispered, her voice tense, her fingers instinctively gripping her bow. Kaelin's golden eyes narrowed, catching the scent of smoke and metal. His breath turned to steam as he exhaled, his dragon's instincts awakening. The threat of battle hung heavy in the air, and though he was loath to break the grove's sacred peace, he knew they had no choice. Protecting this place was not a passive task. It required strength, resolve, and above all, trust. The renegades emerged, their eyes glinting with the same wonder Lyra and Kaelin had first felt. But in their gazes was a greed that marred the grove's beauty, a hunger that fed on the thought of controlling such power. One among them stepped forward, his gaze flicking between Lyra and Kaelin, lingering on the dragon with a mixture of awe and disdain. "So, the legends were true," he sneered, his voice laced with contempt. "The grove of the ancient flowers, a place where peace is said to bloom eternal. And you two, a dragon and an elf, would claim it for yourselves?" Lyra raised her bow, her expression steeled. "We protect it," she replied, her voice steady. "This place is not for taking. It belongs to the balance of our world, a balance you threaten with your presence." The elf laughed, dismissive, but Kaelin's low growl silenced him. Flames simmered in the dragon's throat, a promise of the wrath that would come if they dared take another step. "You do not understand what lies here," Kaelin rumbled, his voice resonant with an ancient authority. "This grove holds power not for conquest, but for harmony. Its magic is beyond your grasp, for it only answers to those who seek unity, not dominance." Yet the renegades paid no heed. With a signal from their leader, they lunged forward, their intentions clear. Lyra released her first arrow, swift and sure, halting one of them in their tracks, while Kaelin's wings unfurled, casting a shadow over the grove. His roar shook the trees, sending a tremor through the ground. Flames burst from his maw, a barrier of fire that curved protectively around the grove's heart, warding off those who would defile it. Despite the renegades' numbers, Lyra and Kaelin fought with a shared strength, each trusting the other's skill and courage. Lyra moved with fluid precision, Each arrow she released aimed to disable, not kill, reflecting her deep respect for life, even that of those who had turned against her. Kaelin's fire blazed in controlled bursts, scorching the earth without harming the grove's delicate flowers. The renegades, unprepared for such resistance, began to falter. Their leader, desperate and enraged, made one final attempt to breach the grove's heart, charging toward the pool with a reckless, wild energy. Lyra's arrow flew, striking the ground before him, while Kaelin stepped forward, his scales glinting with an otherworldly light, his eyes filled with a warning that needed no words. Seeing the strength and unity between the dragon and the elf, the renegades hesitated, doubt creeping into their ranks. One by one, they retreated, casting glances filled with envy and fear until only the leader remained. His eyes burned with resentment as he looked at Lyra and Kaelin, but he too, at last, lowered his weapon. "This isn't over," he muttered, casting a dark glance over the grove before disappearing into the shadows of the forest. As the last of the renegades vanished, Lyra and Kaelin allowed themselves a moment to breathe. The grove was safe, for now, but the threat had left its mark. A reminder that peace was a fragile thing, easily shattered and fiercely contested. Kaelin looked at Lyra, admiration and gratitude mingling in his gaze. "You fought well," he said, his voice softer now, no longer tinged with fire, but with a quiet respect. "You trust without hesitation, even in the face of danger." Lyra lowered her bow, feeling the weight of his words settle over her. "I couldn't have protected this place alone," she replied, meeting his gaze. "I trusted you because this grove trusts you. It called you here, just as it did me. We're bound to it, and to each other, in purpose and in spirit." The grove seemed to acknowledge their words, the flowers swaying as if in agreement, their silvery petals gleaming brighter under the rising sun. Lyra and Kaelin stood side by side, their bond forged through the trials of trust and the vow they shared. They knew the grove would not remain safe by their strength alone, but through the harmony that bound them, a harmony as delicate and resilient as the flowers in bloom around them. In the dawn's light, they understood that this was only the beginning of their journey, a journey that would demand every ounce of courage, patience, and trust they possessed. And in that understanding they found strength, knowing they would face whatever lay ahead, together. As dawn melted into morning, a calm settled over the grove. Though its recent battle had left an invisible mark on the air, a reminder of how easily the peace they guarded could be threatened. Kaelin and Lyra walked slowly through the grove's heart, taking in the flowers' soft silvery glow. Though the renegades had been driven away, a lingering unease clouded their victory. They knew that the grove's secrets were now vulnerable. their sanctuary coveted by those who would seek to wield its magic for darker purposes. Kaelin's gaze swept over the grove, his golden eyes reflecting the light of the flowers, a quiet sadness softening his features. This place was meant to unite our kinds, to hold a peace that transcends pride or power, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And yet, it now lies on the edge of peril. Lyra, sensing the dragon's sorrow, reached out to touch one of the flowers, her fingers brushing the delicate petals. Perhaps the grove chose us for this very reason, she replied. To be here now, to protect what remains, so that harmony can live on. Even if it's only in a single heart or a single flower. They stood in silence, absorbing the weight of her words. The grove's beauties was not just in its flowers or its light. It lay in its purpose, its ancient promise of unity. And in that moment, Kaelin and Lyra felt the grove's spirit enfold them. A quiet whisper that stirred the air, as if to remind them that true strength lay not in isolation, but in trust and compassion. Together, they approached the pool at the grove's center, its mirror-like surface as still as midnight. The water beckoned them once more, drawing them to its depths, where the stars seemed to dance even in daylight. Kaelin knelt beside it, his great silver form reflected in the pool, mingling with Lyra's shadow. They gazed into the water, and once more, images rose to meet them. A vision not of the past, but of what could be. They saw a forest where dragons flew beside elves, their wings casting shadows of protection over villages and glades. They saw hands extended, gifts shared, lives intertwined in a harmony that echoed through the land. The vision was fleeting, a fragile glimpse of a future so delicate that it seemed it might vanish if they dared to blink. But in that brief moment, Lyra and Kaelin felt its truth, a thread that tied them to the very soul of the grove. The water rippled, and a voice, soft, ancient, and resonant, rose from its depths, filling the grove with a quiet power. To guard this place is to guard the heart of all who seek peace, the voice intoned. You have shown trust, courage, and unity. In this, you have earned the blessing of the grove. Kaelin and Lyra exchanged glances, their expressions mirroring each other's wonder and reverence. They knelt by the pool as the flowers around them began to shimmer, their light intensifying until the entire grove glowed like stardust scattered on the breeze. The blessing flowed through them, a warmth that spread from their hearts to their fingertips, a magic that bound them not only to the grove, but to each other. A pledge that they would guard its secrets as long as they drew breath. As the light dimmed, a hush fell once more, and Kaelin and Lyra felt a calm settle within them. They understood that the blessing came with a responsibility, a pact to keep the grove's magic hidden, to shield it from those who would corrupt its purpose. They were guardians now, not only of a place, but of an idea, a possibility that even the most disparate beings could find harmony when bound by a common love. The grove, recognizing the promise etched into their spirits, seemed to soften around them, as if embracing them both. The flowers bowed slightly, a gentle acknowledgement of their guardianship, and the pool's surface returned to stillness, its secrets locked away once more. As they rose, Kalen looked down at Lyra, a new respect glinting in his golden eyes. "Our kinds may not understand what we guard here," he murmured. "They may see us as fools, or worse, as traitors to old ways. But this grove, this peace, it is worth the scorn of others." Lyra nodded, her resolve unwavering. "Let them say what they will. We know the truth, and one day perhaps others will come to see it as well." She paused, her voice softening. "The grove has shown us that trust is not a gift given lightly. It's earned, and it binds us as surely as any vow." Together they left the grove, their hearts carrying the weight and warmth of its magic. They knew they would return often, their footsteps silent, their eyes watchful, their spirits steadfast. And though they went their separate ways, Kalen returning to his mountain and Lyra to her village, a bond stronger than any physical distance united them. In the years that followed, the grove remained hidden, its flowers blooming in quiet beauty each century, tended by its guardians. Tales began to emerge, whispers of an ancient place where dragons and elves once walked together, where a silver-scaled dragon and a young elf defended a peace that defied time and tradition. And though few ever saw the grove, its magic lingered in the air, woven into the heart of the forest, a testament to the power of harmony and the courage of those who guarded it. And so the legend of the hidden grove grew, a quiet promise that somewhere in the world peace remained, tended by the spirits of those brave enough to believe in it.